The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your place in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Holland.
Showtime. Welcome to the show. Folks, we're back. This is part 2 of 2. John Ventre is with us tonight. You'll recognize our guest tonight because John, of course, folks, he's one of the stars on the History Channel series on UFOs called Hangar One. John is also the state director for 6 states for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. John has appeared on many other Discovery and History Channel productions, both in the United States and Canada. He recently appeared on the Anderson Cooper Show to discuss some sightings, and we didn't get to that in our first show, so if you're tuning in for this part, you're with some luck. It seems the Anderson Cooper Show took some liberties in the editing to tell their own story. So in the first part of the show, folks, as we ended, I have to bring you up to speed here, John was telling us about perhaps a demon, perhaps an ET, and we're going to pick it up there, John. And if you want to fill in some of those blanks, and they are many, please feel free to.
Yeah, I kind of gave you the quick version, but actually, even in April of 14, something else happened. My son and his fiance were over, and I have a home theater with a projector on the ceiling and a 102-inch screen that comes down. So
Nice.
we're standing there talking. Him and his fiance are sitting on the couch. I'm standing about halfway. The projector's in between the two of us. We're talking, and all of a sudden we both look up. Something on the ceiling went in front of the projector light, and it snaked just like a snake. It was a spirit, and it went right across the ceiling. It wasn't enough that you can see a shape, other than it was just like an eel. It went right across the ceiling, and my son said, "What is that?" And I said, "I have no idea what that was." Again, it's another type of a spirit or something,
You're a MUFON director. Do you hear many, many stories like this from people that have been abducted, alien abductions? I'll tell you why. I had a demonologist on the show, and she hears sometimes that grays are demons. And when you brought this up,
I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I'm leaning right now. See, I've got to be able to explain this in my mind. The thing that startled me is that there were always the bangs, sometimes a voice, footsteps, tapping, stuff. It's getting more pronounced, entering my daughter. That thing, whatever it was on the ceiling, because I think these spirits, they hang. They're not like under your bed. They're not in your closet. They're up in the ceiling, looking down at us. They're up in the corner. That's where they are. But the thing that bothered me was what happened in June. Now I could smell it. You see, it wasn't just a bang on the wall. And I'm telling you, the bang on the wall in my TV room and the bang on the wall in my master bathroom was so loud. I don't think I could punch. I do kickboxing. I don't think I could hit the wall hard enough to make that sound. And that picture flipped up off the wall. I got 2 Indian headdresses with feathers there. The feathers blew to the side, and the dog. The thing I know I'm not crazy because the dog had just come over. He's a Doberman. He laid across my lap while we were watching TV. As soon as the bang, we both turned and looked. Exact same second, we both turned and looked at the wall.
Did he growl or anything like that?
No, he didn't until the game was over, and I went upstairs figuring that smell had to be coming out of the pipes. It had to be a sewer problem or gas, but it doesn't make any sense because this is the upstairs bathroom. There's two bathrooms below it. There's one on the basement, there's one on the first floor, there's one on the second floor. How does the second floor have the smell and not the first floor and not the basement? It don't make any sense. The pipes are all connected. That's why they put three in a row on three floors.
You described the smell as smelling like feces and also rotting flesh, rotting meat.
Yeah.
And every time I speak with a demonologist, and I had a woman on, Christine Corda, who went through a real Roman Catholic exorcism, that's exactly the way they've described demons as smelling.
That scared me. Now I wear this. Look at this thing. My cross is bigger than yours, if you can see it. You know, I wear my cross now.
Has it made a difference, John?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I got really concerned about this because now it's manifesting. That smell was so pungent. Those bangs on the wall twice were so loud, and the dog heard it. And when you said that the dog barked, what happened was right before I laid down in bed and I put the TV on so it's still lit, all of a sudden the dog, I mean, he's 108 pounds. This is a big Doberman. I see him go down the hall to the attic stairs, and I keep a gate across the stairs because a couple of times he went upstairs and did his business. So there's a gate there, and he looks up and goes wild. And I'm telling you, this ain't like barking. You know, this is like when the UPS man comes to the door and my dog goes insane because he's in uniform or something. He is going absolutely insane barking because he sees something at the top of the stairs. I'm convinced of that because the dogs can sense that stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, too, then he laid down. He sleeps at the foot of the bed. It's a little couch where you kind of sit and put your shoes on. He claimed that. That's his bed at night. So I'm getting the news. I can see his head. I'm watching the TV, and then again in my bathroom where that other bathroom is right connected to it on the other side of the wall, boom! My dog and I. And you see, then I ignored it because I said, I'm not going to react to this and act scared. I turned the TV off, I rolled over and went to sleep. That probably pissed the demon off, you know, because, hey, I can't get this guy upset, you know. So, but then I started thinking about it.
Well, John, I wanted to ask you this too. You said you had security cameras on the exterior of the house.
Yeah.
Did you ever capture anything on those? And do you have interior security cameras as well? Perhaps you've caught something on those?
You know, you just gave me a good idea. I've got the ADT pulse system with two cameras on the interior. They're on the two doors, back door, front door, obviously.
Motion censored, I suspect?
Yeah, and they go off with motion. So at any time, I could go and look. I don't know how far back it goes now because that's June, you know, so I don't know that 7 months is still there. But you just gave me an idea to go back and look at that, you know, and I didn't look at the outside of the house, you know, but I've got 4 cameras on the outside that record to a DVR, and it's a continuous record.
In the first part of the show, we had discussed the fact that there was a helicopter hovering over your house when we started talking about national security issues. And it hovered there for, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, that'd be at least 5 minutes. Came back again. It was there twice.
Maybe you could check your security cameras on that and let us know.
Yeah,
Maybe
well, yeah, I will. But
show up.
those cameras are looking down at the driveway, the walkway. There's 4 different angles. That's above, so I don't think that's going to show up. But you gave me an idea to check my ADT pulse and see, because the camera's in the kitchen, the other camera's in the entranceway, you know. But it scared me because it's manifesting and getting louder, and now there's a smell. When the smell was there, I knew now the next step is going to be an attack or possession. Something is going to happen next. So, you know, I went to the religious store. I got this cross. I put crosses in the other rooms. I've always had my bedroom with a cross. I got this huge Last Supper thing in the hallway. But I went to the church. I got the holy water. I made crosses over all the windows and doors upstairs. I put crosses in the other room. And I got a couple of books to read on possession and on how to get rid of it. And, you know, I spoke to a priest, and he goes, well, it's you it's attached to. It's not the house. Although that house in New Jersey had its own spirits. So it's you. But
Did the priest think it was a warning or something? Because, you know, you're doing all this wonderful work now with MUFON. You've got the shows going. You're getting deeper and deeper into it. Do you think they see you as a threat, perhaps? And this is a warning?
I don't know. I don't know what's behind it. But then the weirdest thing happens. I meet this woman. Like I told you, I was single. I've been divorced now.
Yeah.
I meet this woman, and she's pretty, devout Catholic and stuff. And she,
By
it's
the
kind
way,
of
for all you single women out there watching right now, John's connections are going to be on www.nightfrightshow.com.
That sounds good. Thanks. So, but I meet this woman, and she's very Catholic, and she says she's into UFOs, which didn't make sense, but she kind of was interested in it. And I told her what just happened in the house, because that was June. This is August that I meet her, and she goes, "I'll be over. I haven't done this in a while. We'll perform the exorcism rites, and I have holy water." I mean, how many women you know can come over and perform the exorcism rites by memory? By memory. She knew all the wording, everything to say, different prayers. This is like Elaine Warren coming over, from The Conjuring.
Yeah.
She comes over with her holy water and goes from room to room to get out of, and going through the whole thing, blessing the house and all. I'm telling you, when she did that, there was almost like this weight lifted off. My house has a totally different feel to it right now. It's almost like it's springtime all the time. It's this light feeling in my house instead of being kind of this depressed feeling of negativity and stuff. It was weird. So it's like, how many times you meet a woman who could do this, And she says to me, your involvement in this UFO stuff, the books you write, every room in my house is themed, medieval, Egyptian, Japanese, sports, but my entire basement is sci-fi, Bigfoot, UFOs.
With a 102-foot screen. I haven't missed on that part, 102.
Yeah, that's my TV room. That room's Indians and Animals with 600 DVDs. But every room is themed, But my basement is my sci-fi stuff with all the little resin models and Bigfoot, and I got a footprint, and I got all my UFO stuff, all the plaques from conferences I did. It's a man cave. That's exactly what it is. But you looked at it. I've lost dates when they saw that room. It's like, I had one woman said to me, "You're not going to cut me up, are you?" And I said, she actually asked me that, and I looked at it and I said, "No, not before." I'm going to keep the show G-rated. I said no, but I mean, so she says to me, "You're drawing this stuff in," and she sent me a whole series of emails, and I read them, and it basically says you got to get these things out of your house. I mean, I have an 8-foot Anubis. I have an Egyptian room that'll knock your socks off. Giorgio or the Ancient Alien guys would love it. I mean, I've got a King Tut sarcophagus with a mummy in it. I've got an 8-foot Anubis. I got these beautiful pillars with all kinds of Egyptian stuff on it, and the whole room's Egyptian. It's cool. But she said, you got to get rid of that stuff. You got to get rid of all the stuff in the bay. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I understand this is happening, but I'm not worshiping any of this stuff. These are they're decorations, and I look at it as it's an ornament. I said, I don't, it's like I could care less. But you kind of like saying, should I? You get rid of that stuff? I don't know. But then there's something. It even gets even weirder. This woman is cold to the touch, and she says, you hug her, you kiss her, you take her hand. She's cold, and she says to me, "Oh yeah, my parents, they used to tease me that I'm a corpse, And now I'm thinking, I said, I don't want to get too weird, but I'm saying to myself, this is weird the way she showed up, like she was sent, And I think we got guardian angels, and I absolutely believe she was sent by a guardian angel, and she wasn't sent by the CIA to help me, but so. It's kind of weird. So then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't want to date you anymore. She's gone. She showed up for 2 months, cleaned my house out of spirits, and we were getting along great. I actually told people I would marry this woman. And I was a devout bachelor. I will never, ever get married again. She changed my mind, and she's gone. Right? So I actually got online and I said, this is weird, but I'm going to Google her name for obituary. I want to see if this woman had passed away. No, I Googled. She was there. She was a teacher, which just like she said in Virginia, there's no obituary. If there was an obituary, that would have been a flip out moment. That would have been like,
think.
I'm going back on Anderson Cooper and I'm telling this story on the Anderson Cooper show. Could you
Great
imagine?
segue. We gotta cover Anderson Cooper before we
Okay.
run out of time. And we got lots of time, folks. Get the coffee going, get the tea going, beverage of your choice going. Kick back. We've got a lot of time left. But
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Before you get to Anderson, I want to talk a little bit about my book. But you see, now I got a conflict because I wrote this, An Alternative History of Mankind, because I wanted to tell this. Yeah, that's the title. I wanted to tell the story with all my knowledge about what if they have always been here, the ETs. What if they have interfered in everything? Before you get to Anderson, I want to talk a little bit about my book. But you see, now I got a conflict because I wrote this, An Alternative History of Mankind, because I wanted to tell this. Yeah, that's the title. I wanted to tell the story with all my knowledge about what if they have always been here, the ETs. What if they have interfered in everything? What if we've completely misidentified angels and demons and they're really ETs? All the ancient alien stuff. So I write this book with every alternative theory you can think of, and it's in this book. Really supporting the fact that we were genetically engineered by them, that they have interfered in that. But the way it's really an interesting story. That woman I met at that conference, who I think was a hybrid back in '99, she's the character in the book. I pick her up as a hitchhiker. She's a hybrid. She's telling me our true history. So it's very easy to write when you're in a conversation. That's an easier way of writing a story. But something happened about right before I finished writing this book. I said to myself, you know what? You've got to support that we came from God, Jesus, So I actually went back and rewrote portions, and the storyline kind of has me as the driver, where I'm not buying everything she says, and we have this argument over religion and the Bible, and she's trying hard to convince me that we're a genetic engineered project. And I'm saying, no, I believe in Jesus. So I kind of made the book, and people that have read it said, yeah, you've left it on the fence. Creation meaning they created us or God created us. And I think this would make a hell of a TV show, too. You have the hitchhiker, opens up every episode, kind of as the narrator, and then you can play out that episode of them involved in Egypt or Rome or whatever it might be. But, so now I said to myself, I can almost write another book now, because I wrote this one really from the standpoint that everything's been manipulated in our society over the years by them. We're a science project, But now, if you were to ask me, what do you believe? I believe the abduction phenomenon and the grays are demonic. I believe that 99%. I believe I know for a fact there is demonic activity. That I've never seen a UFO. I saw that guy standing down the hallway, which I think was some sort of an alien. And then I had that out of body experience and those dreams that to me seemed like might have been an abduction, and maybe that kid that was poking my dog was a hybrid son or something. I don't know what was going. But then now I look back at it and I say, you know what? Was that what it was, or was that a demonic encounter? I don't know what that was. I have no idea, but I firmly believe in it's like weird too. Why, as I'm an executive at UPS, and all of a sudden I get this thing to write books on end of days, the Mayan calendar. I became an expert in end time prophecies. Like what? At 40 years old, I'm writing end time prophecy books. I wasn't even a MUFON member. I had no interest in UFO. All of a sudden, I'm an expert now in Revelation and the Mayan calendar. And then I joined MUFON. It's almost like I got pushed into this, because I wasn't into this. I was 40 years old. I wasn't into this, And so this is where I am now. But, I think if we looked at the Bible and took that a little more literal, rather than people laughing at it and saying you're crazy if you believe in all of this stuff, what if Jesus is going to come back. You're going to have the tribulation, the end of days, the 7 years. You're going to go through all of that. You know, the good people are going to disappear, and the Antichrist is coming and stuff. And his plan, because he knows his half-life is almost over here. It's coming. He's only got a few years to turn people against religion. Aren't we turning against religion right now? I'd say yeah. I mean, you look at Tim Tebow.
Good
You know,
argument.
this guy wanted to take a knee at halftime or before the game. I don't recall. Everybody's laughing at him. What are we laughing at this guy for? Why are we laughing at this guy? Because he's the only religious one on the field, you know? And so I said to myself, what would, if this was demonic, they would want you to turn away from religion, give you something else to look up to and worship, which would be advanced technology with ETs. You know, it's kind of in my crazy head making a lot of sense right now. This whole thing could be demonic. Maybe there are no ETs and it's all demonic activity to trick us, because that's what they do. They're, you know, the devil would be tricking. I don't know. But then I do think there's ETs that come here, or it's interdimensional. You know, I'm not going to say anything's 100%.
Maybe it's all the above.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think it's all the above. Yeah, I do. But I'm
trickery.
100%.
We got to get to Anderson Cooper. What happened on? How did you get invited? First of all, what was the premise, and what happened once you were on the show?
Yeah, well, they call. I'm on the board of MUFON, a temporary interim board member at the time, not a permanent board member. So they call, Anderson Cooper Show calls MUFON headquarters and says, we need somebody to do the show. We got a couple of good cases. So, you know, it kind of was like nobody really wanted to go do it on Anderson Cooper. So they said, John, why don't you do it? You're from New York originally, and you're the closest one to New York, where we got to fly from California and Denver. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And people warned me, don't do it. It's a taped show. It's not live. Don't do it. So I said, well, somebody's got to do it. If I don't do it, they're going to get Joe Blow to do it. You know, somebody's got to go do it. So that's really how I got picked. And, you know, I gave them the one good case we had out of Bucks County, Pennsylvania in '08, and that's the one that we talked about. Then there were some other witnesses from Kentucky. There was 3 witnesses, myself, and they told me they were bringing Joe Nickel on as a skeptic. I said, I don't care, bring him on. So, but then they I get there and they tell me, we got a psychic medium here who's going to come on. We want you to support her. And I said, there's no place for a psychic medium. I said, we got 3 witnesses, the UFO investigator and a skeptic. What do you need a psychic for? You know, so that's how they made fun of the whole thing. So, you know, we do the show. I'm very happy the way it went, right? And I said, this was great, because every time Joe said something, Anderson said, well, what do you think about that? I had a good answer, and I usually do have a good answer, you know? And I said, I knocked it out of the ballpark. So 10 days later, it aired.
Anderson was cool on air and everything?
He was okay. I mean, he didn't believe, you know, he said he has to see, he gives you this typical, there's life in space, but for me, I have to see the body or the craft. And you hear that at all the debunkers now, and I hear this at conferences too, so I can pick the G-man out, because when they use that line, I know that they're a G-man. They're one of the CIA guys. They're one of them toting the line that you got to show me the body. But I believe there's life in space. You know, that's what they say. So then when it aired, I would say about 40% of what I said was cut out. All the good answers. There was one part where the audience applauded the girls, the 3 witnesses. They cut it out. There was one part where they laughed at Joe Nickel. They cut it out. The answers I gave about, I told them, now this is April of '08, no, April of 12. I told them that the CIA, the NSA was monitoring everything in Utah at that listening post. And they everything, this show, my emails, your phone, everything. And he said no. He said, no, I don't, you know, he didn't believe it. The audience laughed at me. You know, this was a year before it came out, because I read it in Wired magazine that that's what was going on. So I guess Wired magazine and one of my books that I put this in, Apophis 2029, that's in there. We're the only 2 people in the country that knew that the NSA was doing this. I said it on the show. And So it was thing after thing that got cut out of the show, and I was like stunned. I was saying, they said, where's all the good answers I gave? They cut it all out. So I called the producer and asked him. He goes, well, we ran about 3 minutes extra. I said, well, why didn't you cut out the last 10 minutes with the psychic medium? I mean, that was the stupidest thing. And he goes, yeah, we went overboard with that, and we shouldn't have brought the psychic. You were right. But yet they edited. So it really left Joe Nickel looking like the smart guy, like the expert. They gave him the last word. So, it was.
So in contrast to that, John, how does Hangar One hold together? Are you happy with the way it's going right now in terms of editing and the storytelling?
Yeah, I get to read over the kind of, the outline and everything before we film. I add to the show. I've given them a lot of good ideas. Matter of fact, in season 1, it's like nobody put that connection together between Gary McKinnon and President Ronald Reagan. I gave them that. I said, think about it, guys. Reagan, in his diary, right before he died, I don't know if that was 94 or so, 1994, he put something in his personal diary that said, I'm so proud we have an outer space fleet of 300 people, officers. 300. Reagan wanted us to know. That's why he 5 times said to the UN about extraterrestrials, and he spoke with Gorbachev. He couldn't come out and say it, but he did everything subtly he could because he wanted us to know. He put that in his diary. So what did Gary McKinnon find from England, when he hacked into the Defense Department? He finds Project Solar Warden, where we have 300 outer space officers, and we have, I don't remember how many craft that they had. Some were big craft, like 300 feet, some 60-foot ones. That we have this whole space fleet. And I say to people, the space program, the space shuttle, we had 5. They held 8 people. That's 40. Where did Reagan get 300 from? So I gave them that for the show, and they put it in the show. They put the whole Reagan thing with his diary and what he said to the UN and Gary McKinnon. That's the first time anybody put that together. Reagan wanted us to know the truth about ETs and what was going on. So, no, that show is cool because I've added to it. On the set, I've introduced things that they didn't know and stuff. So I kind of like a small consultant and stuff. But, you get to say what you want. I also do a show in Pittsburgh. You look me up on YouTube and look up either my name or UFOs over Pittsburgh. I do twice a month a half-hour UFO talk show with guests like this. But it's on TV. It airs only in Pittsburgh. It's where it airs. 1.3 million people. That's fine. And we do this UFO talk show. And then I did a couple of episodes on Close Encounters in Toronto. I filmed it with Discovery Science. So so it's pretty cool.
That's great. It's going really well. Now, just speculation. You had mentioned Ronald Reagan. Do you think there has actually been contact? We hear the rumors about Eisenhower meeting with ETs and everything else. What's your views on this? Has there been contact with world leaders?
Years ago, I was skeptical on the whole Eisenhower. That was the Greada Treaty that was signed and stuff. But when you think about it and you say what would happen, if they wanted to make contact, they're either going to contact, us or a country in Europe or the Soviet Union. I don't think China back then, but one of those is going to get contacted if they wanted to do some research project. They say, look, we'll give you some stuff. We'll give you the computerized chips, and we'll give you lasers, we'll give you Kevlar, we'll give you the stuff that Colonel Corso said, And so what choice do you have? If you tell them no, they're going to go to Russia. You can't tell them no. So you've got to get in bed with them and say, okay, we're going to do this because the alternative, you lose. If we do it, we stay as the superpower. If we don't do it, somebody else becomes the superpower. So you have to. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. And to me, my hero is Reagan, though, because Carter saw it, and he was the only president that filed a UFO report. But Reagan had 2 encounters. But he tried to tell us, he tried to create Star Wars. I mean, him and Gorbachev discussed this stuff, and talked about the U.S. and Russia would get together to defend the planet, I mean, that was a common ground that we had with Russia. So Reagan was the man, as far as I'm concerned, as far as UFOs go. Our current president is completely clueless on this. When he was asked twice, he said, well, are they Republicans or Democrats? So he made fun of it in his first election. And then Bassett's put the petition in, and he came back and said that there's no proof that there's any intelligent life anywhere in the universe, and there's no proof we've ever been visited. So the intelligent life quote must have included him too, and us, because there is no intelligent life, right, from what I can see. But he's really the most dismissive president of all of them. I mean, you can find with the other presidents, Nixon, he showed Jackie Gleason the bodies, down in Florida. Clinton was interested. He went to Lawrence Rockefeller's ranch that time, and they discussed the whole thing. And his chief of staff, Podesta, he spoke at the National Press Club about, people deserve the right to know about UFOs. Every president except the current one. It's incredible that this guy, who was supposed to be the most honest, to me, he's the most clammed up president I've ever seen.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Do you think we're headed for a calamity right now, John?
Oh, I don't know. Economy seems to be getting better. Eventually these end of days thing will happen. My biggest fear still is that super volcano in Yellowstone. I talked about it for years, and like I said, I've lost reception on radio shows talking about it. But that is a real threat. That's the most imminent threat we have, is Yellowstone right now, because it will pretty much wipe out half the United States and part of Canada, and but then the acid rain comes, and then you're talking about losing 4 billion people. That's what would be the result of that supervolcano. So I became an expert in asteroids because I wrote a book on that, and end time prophecies and UFOs. But the one that scares me is Yellowstone. That's the biggest problem I think we could have.
It's unpredictable, isn't it? It could just go.
Well, we know that at any time the ground swells up 6 feet. There was a road that started to melt. The blacktop started to melt away. There was a bunch of guys that went there, like these Harvard graduates, doctors and lawyers. They go every 5 years for a camping, fishing trip. They went over there. The dock was there, and the lake was over there. The ground swelled up 6 feet. The water moved over. All the trees were 5 feet underwater. And they're saying, how is this possible? They were the ones that actually, about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago maybe, they paid for the surveys and redid all the surveys and found out the ground rose 6 feet in that area. That caldera at any time swells up. There's little tremors, and we had 21 earthquakes, tremors last January. I hope I don't ever have to live through that. I hope this happens after my time in 30, 40 more years. But I feel bad for my kids and grandkids. That is something that will be like nothing humanity has ever seen.
Besides monitoring it, John, is there anything we can do to relieve some of the stress on it?
Well, no, I think you try to pluck it and drain it, it's going to explode. I even worry, like the book I wrote, Apophis 2029, is a half-mile asteroid that's supposed to just miss us, and if it does hit, it'll hit Nigeria. But I've got a scenario in the book where the impact is so great, it kind of resonates through the globe and bulges on the other side and pops Yellowstone, which I think, I'm not a physics geologist. I wonder if something like that happened. If most asteroid strikes are in the United States and China. If China were to get hit with a large enough asteroid, would it make the whole ring of fire go off on the other side of the planet, Yeah.
Fukushima. Who knew that was going to happen for sure?
Yeah. These things happen. They really happen. And
Chernobyl. It happens.
Absolutely. But
we were getting radiation readings in Ottawa when Chernobyl happened.
Yeah, and you know what? I was a little worried. I told my kids too. They got married last year and went to Hawaii, and I said, you know what? I'm not sure I want to go over that way. With the radiation, who knows what fish you eat and stuff like that. here you are, it's your honeymoon, you're getting married, you're going to Hawaii. I think I'd go to London. I want to go as far away from it as possible. But they went anyhow. They wanted to go to Hawaii, so hopefully everything turns out okay for them. But these people that talk about the abductions and stuff, saying they're here, they're going to help us, and they're going to give us this, give us that. They've never given us anything. And it's even in my book that they're here. This is a science project, and they're observing us. They know that the planet cleanses itself periodically, and I'm certain when that Yellowstone is ready to blow, you're going to see 100 UFOs. Every species is going to send their representative here to film this because they want to see the super volcano go off and then watch how we struggle and how do we survive this thing. They're not here to help. They're not going to intercede. They never have, as far as helping us, to advance us and cure our ills and give us free energy. They're not, because this happens. It's happened forever.
What do you think about the possibilities of alien moon bases, perhaps? Maybe something on Mars? Past civilizations?
Yeah, I got a scenario in the book, and this is actually what the hybrid tells me, is this is how this whole thing went about. Venus was a comet. It would pass by, you could see it bigger. It would come by like as big as the moon. It was a comet that came by. Eventually, it came so close to Earth. That's what caused the Great Flood. The tail of the comet, for 40 days, we went through the tail of the comet every time we went around the sun, and it just poured rain in barrels. So we went through the tail of the comet, which was Venus. Venus just missed Mars and ripped its atmosphere away. The civilization that was there came here because they knew this was going to happen. It ripped, because they lost their atmosphere, and then they lost all the water and everything. Venus got caught in the sun's gravity and became a planet. It's the only planet that rotates the opposite direction.
I didn't know that, John. You just educated me.
Yeah, the only one that rotates. That's the theory that's in my book of the Great Flood. What happened to Mars? It was inhabited just like us, and some of them came here, and that's how Venus got in place. So I got cool ideas in my book. The first human abductions, it didn't start back with Barney and Betty Hill. You know when it was?
No.
1888, Whitechapel, London. Think about it. They never caught Jack. There was no Jack the Ripper, Jack. It was an E.T. Those were human abductions, just like the cattle mutilations.
Oh, my
never caught him.
I never connected the two like that.
He did the same exact things, right? He took the sexual organs, took the innards. He did everything that they did on a cattle mutilation. That was an E.T. human abduction by a species that was in London at the time. Titanic didn't hit an iceberg. It was a USO coming up out of the water, hit the Titanic. That's what sunk it. Accidentally clipped the Titanic. My book is full of ideas that you have never thought of.
Michel Deschamps' been on the show. He's the Northern Ontario MUFON representative, friend of Don as well, and Stan's and everybody. And he was saying the greatest attraction up there, because there's a lake every 6 feet, honest to God, there's a lake every 6 feet, is the water. For some reason, they're attracted to water. And, I was mentioning in the first show the fact that I'm on Lake Ontario here in Kingston, and there's a sighting, every weekend it seems somebody else has seen something weird happening, either lights under the water or something flying out of the water. What are your views on something like that, on speculation? Is there a lot of lakes where you are? Because you were saying that your state has 350 sightings a year?
Yeah, we're like the third, fourth highest in the country. And population-wise, it don't quite add up. We get a lot of cases. But there was a couple of things that you need to know with that. Paul Stonehill, who wrote a chapter from my UFOs Over Pennsylvania book, told me that Russia did a study and concluded that more than half of all the UFO sightings were around bodies of water. And I think Jacques Vallée and others have all concluded the same thing, that Ivan Sanderson, that is true. And what just happened was one of my field investigators here in Pennsylvania, who's an attorney and an author, he went through 2,000 MUFON sightings reports over like 4 years. and did a study on orange orbs. And he does a whole, you know what's crazy? He has a description in his book that matches the description in my book of that guy standing down the hallway. When he describes him, that's exactly how I described him, as the same being. I showed it to him on my show, UFOs Over Pittsburgh, and he says, John, that's what they see with these orange orbs. That guy who's long arms and legs, tiny waist, square head like he's wearing some sort of breathing device. That's what he saw. But he also did the study as to where he says they come out at 8:30 at night. They go back around 10:30. It seems to be based on the reports or when people see it. And he said there's 4 bases around the country. And it's in his book. He shows a map. There's one off of Miami. There's one like off of Tampa in the Gulf. There's one in Lake Erie, which is where all of our cases come, and that whole Pennsylvania thing you want to talk about came out of Lake Erie, is where it started. And then there's one off of California by Catalina Island. Based on the reports and where they see it and where they're headed, those are the 4 bases around the country.
What's the attraction? Is it the water itself, or is it the camouflage that it offers them so people don't see them?
Yeah, it's the camouflage. Because you got to figure, if they can fly in space, they got to be able to be under the water. I mean, it's got to be airtight, right? Yeah. You're not gonna, if you're not spraying air, you don't have leaks in outer space, you're not going to have leaks under the water. I think it's where they hide. And I definitely, when you look at the continental shelf, during World War II, the subs would, like the German and Japanese subs would come, they would sit and just park themselves on the continental shelf in like caverns and wait. That's what they did. That's exactly what these UFOs do. There's probably certain areas where there's bases that they either drilled out or huge caverns off of the continental shelf that they go into. But it's, in my mind, it's all about camouflage is what it is.
Hollow Earth theory?
That's in my book too. Well, I was really intrigued with Hitler and the Vril and how that whole thing happened. I think you probably know the story, but he was into the occult and the Vrilya, and that book, The Coming Race, written I think in 1876, which was the Hollow Earth theory. So I put that in there. I just read a book about crypto-terrestrials too recently, where they're saying that there's a species that has always shared the planet with us. Whether it's the leftovers of Atlantis, and after World War II, the Nazis went to Antarctica as their fallback base. So in my book, though, it's funny how, and I don't want to give away the whole storyline, but this woman who turns out to be a hybrid is very afraid of the Hollow Earth and the demonic entities because they can't control them. The ETs are from other planets just like we are, more advanced, but they're afraid of what I was describing to you as the demonic side of it, the grays. The whole Hollow Earth thing could be them where they reside. I don't know. But I have that storyline in the book where the ETs are afraid of the demonic side. They can't control that, and they're actually afraid of it, just like we are.
Wow, what a great story.
You got to read the book. I'm telling you.
The book is called An Alternative History of Mankind. Is that what it's in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So www.nightfrightshow.com. Just click on tonight's guest book covers, and that will take you right to a spot where you can order the books from the comfort of your own home, an armchair with a comforter pulled right up. Great book to read.
Bring your cross.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Okay, John, I want to take you back in time to June 29th, 2008, 10:15 p.m. What happened?
Well, I thought I had my first UFO sighting. So what happens was, at the time, I had a pair of Dobermans who were really good dogs. They're about 90 pounds, well-trained. I always adopt the dogs, so somebody else trained them. And I would actually open my front door. I let them both out. They would walk to the mailbox with me, never went after other dogs and stuff. So I let them out. I'm standing there. All of a sudden, I see something in the sky. This bright object moving really fast across the sky. It went behind a cloud and disappeared. I said, I just saw my first UFO, So brought the dogs in. I come in, I jump on the computer, and I do what MUFON does. There's a website where you put your zip code in, and it tells you everything that flew over that zip code. Exactly at that time, 10:15, 10:20, whatever it was on that date, there was a small asteroid heading to the northeast. It said it right there, exactly at that time. Then I realized it was reflecting the moonlight because the moon was off in the west. The light reflected off, because asteroids are iron ore. It was reflecting the light. So I thought I saw my first UFO, but I really just was a good investigator and figured out it wasn't. So
I've never seen a UFO either, but we have this highway that goes between Montreal and Toronto called the 401. It's the busiest highway in North America. 500,000 vehicles go by every day.
Wow.
And, it's just truck after truck after truck after truck. And, all the truckers call in with their sightings, and they're pretty consistent around Lake Ontario. And, of course, the St. Lawrence River runs right through to Montreal. So Canada's pretty much a spooky place, folks. What can I tell you?
Yeah. Well, that whole northern area is, like I said, Vermont, New Hampshire. I get the weirdest cases out of there.
Tell us some of them.
Well, I was going to say that started the whole UFO wave of 2008, what you just brought up about my sighting. And what we were able to figure out with that was it was around April. It started around April of 2008. We were, and this is crazy, man. I'm sitting here watching television. I'm getting phone calls from people from Eastlake, Ohio, from Wheeling, West Virginia, telling me they see these orbs and these bright lights like UFOs coming in off of Lake Erie. The guy's standing right there on Eastlake, Ohio, and he says this thing is coming in, just came over, it's heading through Ohio. Then the guy, puts a UFO report in MUFON from Wheeling. I see this coming over Wheeling, heading to Pittsburgh. I'm getting cases in Pittsburgh. I get a case from a guy in State College. It's the same. It's like a half hour after the guy in Eastlake, Ohio. So they're coming in off of Lake Erie, across Pennsylvania. Then we have that huge UFO wave in Bucks County, but it started in Lake Erie, and this is the stuff I talked about on Anderson Cooper, and those were the witnesses there. But we had that Denise case, the one that came to Anderson Cooper, and
Tell us that one.
she 4 times. The 2 best cases we had, both of them were like 3, 4 in the morning. Dog starts barking. These are people who live about 10 miles away from each other. And they wake up, they see a UFO. Well, with the Denise case, 4 times she saw a triangular craft with 3 lights on it. And 1 time it drops these metallic probes or sprinkles into her tree and then sucks them right back up like a magnet, So we take samples of the leaves and send it to 3 different labs. And one of them comes back saying that the leaves were subject to high heat or radiation, and they were almost like it was October instead of July. And the leaves emitted anthocyanin, which was an enzyme that the leaves emit when they're under high heat. So something happened. The other lab thought they found something else on the leaves that matched up to a case Linda Moulton Howe was working on, but it turned out to be bird urine. I didn't even know birds urinate, but I guess they do. But that's what that was, and and then there were like some chew marks out of it, but it wasn't from insects. It was like almost like a laser or something. So whatever, something happened in this tree, like she said. Oh, and then the other lab report found high rates of boron on the leaves, like 4 times higher. And we took leaves from other trees in the yard, down the street, no boron. Her leaves, where she said something happened, was with boron. Boron is used in stealth aircraft because it doesn't reflect radar. And it's also used in paints in nuclear reactors and stuff like that. So, I asked Denise, do you have a spice rack? Yeah. I said, you got boron in your spice rack? She goes, no. She had no idea what I was talking about. She didn't stand there and sprinkle boron on the leaves, but that's what came up. So something happened in that tree.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it was a good case. That case has been on every TV show I've done. That we've done that case.
Now, the reason why I got in touch with you originally is because a good friend of ours down Dundee, who's been on the show, folks, you can find his shows in the archives, um, had come on talking about an investigation he'd done, a series of investigations that led to a report on alien abductions. And somebody had contacted me from the show from Pennsylvania. And, anyways, Don got in touch with you, you got in touch with me. I don't want to know anybody's personal names or anything like that, but what can you do for people that are abductees? Is there anything that can be done besides just
Yeah.
monitoring? Oh,
Well, you don't. I mean, we don't ever have to use their real name. A lot of times they can just use aliases when they put the information in. We don't. We just need to be able to talk to you. Give me a real phone number or email. You don't have to use your real name. We also, with MUFON, we have the abduction research team. So this is a group of people that are, big names in the field. Kathy Martin is the one that runs it,
she's
and
been on the show.
one of my guys is actually he's a doctor. I don't know if you were a baseball fan in the 70s and 80s. Do you remember George Doc Medich? Pitched for the Yankees and pitched for the Pirates. Big strapping guy, 6'5". He's a field investigator for me.
Is he really?
Out of Pittsburgh. And he was actually in the first episode of my UFOs over Pennsylvania talk show I do. And he's on the abduction research team because he's actually a doctor. He's a surgeon. Podiatrist. So he was a baseball player and a podiatrist, and he's a field investigator for MUFON. So they have a pretty good group of people, and they have a whole checklist, and they how to tell if the person's telling the truth and what severity it is, and then they have people they can refer them to, depending on where you live, But that part, whether your medical plan will pick up regressive hypnosis or go into a psychologist, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you don't have medical, So,
But you can offer some sort of
we
name.
can offer that. We can give them names of people to see and stuff. So, but I don't know that there's ever closure to it on the abduction, because I don't know how do you get to closure because you're haunted by it, just like what happened to me in '99. I don't know what
Post-traumatic
that
stress
was.
disorder.
Yeah. I don't know what that was, and it really affected me for a while
Of course.
because I was having these bad dreams and stuff, and it was, I don't know what that was, what happened, an out of body. I thought it was an out of body experience, and then I read Whitley Strieber's book Communion.
Oh boy.
In his book, there's a paragraph that says people who think they have out of body experiences and they see like the roof of their house and the cars. They said, no, that's an abduction. That's you being taken, and you kind of like wake up like under anesthesia for a second and you see what's going on. I almost fell out of my bed when I was laying in bed reading this book. I said, oh my God. And I had another out of body experience at 12 years old. Exactly 30 years earlier, July of 1969 and July of 1999. So I asked Dr. David Jacobs. I told him what happened, and I said, I mean, could they be like, like an animal? They tack you, and it's like every 30 years they come back and check on my progress, and they'll be back when I'm 82 years old, 72 years old. And he disagreed. He said, no, that's not the way they operate. When they come often. They keep coming back, and it's generations and stuff. And the first question he asked me was, when you go to bed at night, do you wear underwear? No, he said, what type of underwear do you wear? And I picked him up at the airport to speak at my conference, and I'm moving away from him when he asked me that question, And I said, well, David, I don't wear underwear in bed. It's very uncomfortable to me to wear pajamas and stuff. And he goes, I said, why would you ask me that? And he goes, well, because if you wear boxers or briefs, what we have found is briefs you can really only put on one way. Or he says the boxer shorts, a lot of times the abductee is put on backwards. The flyer's in the back because the ETs don't know how to put them on.
Oh.
And he says a lot of the abductees wake up and their underwear is on backwards. I said, well, I don't wear any, so I can't answer that question. But that was the question he had asked me. But
John, we're going to have to start to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's been absolutely wonderful. John Ventre has been our guest tonight, folks. The book is called An Alternate History of mankind. www.nightfrightshow.com. Just click on tonight's guest book covers. That'll take you right to a spot where you can order them from the comfort of your own home. John, of course, is the MUFON director for six states. Now, we had touched on baseball before, and I had mentioned I was a Montreal Expos fan.
Yeah.
And we talked about space, and I was a big Bill Lee fan, the spaceman.
Yeah.
I actually
Well, they
got
had
to
great
meet him.
teams. I'm telling you, those Montreal teams were great back then. Andre Dawson, you had some great players back
Thank
then.
you. Yeah, and Pittsburgh was just one of my, Willie Stargell, still one of my icons. What a man, what an incredible man. Not even just a baseball player, but as a human being, just an incredible man. Yeah. John, thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. You have a home here in Night Fright.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm Brent Holland from Night Fright. See you all next time.
You're listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com. JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.